Hi, my name is Rod Khleif, and I'm the host of the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. And every week I interview multifamily rock stars, and we talk about how they've built incredible wealth for themselves and their families through multifamily properties. So hit the like and subscribe buttons to get notified every Monday when a new episode comes out. Let's get to it. Welcome to another edition of How to Build Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm Rod Khleif, and I'm thrilled you're here. And I know you're going to get tremendous value from the gentleman I'm interviewing today. His name's Gary Wilson, and he's done a lot of things. He's written 6 real estate books. I think he presently owns 250 units, but he's developed real estate companies. He actually has a pretty large presence helping agents and brokers, teaching them how to deal with investors, which is certainly very relevant in what's coming. And that's through his website, globalinvestoragent.com. And, I think he has probably forgotten more about real estate than many of us know. So we'll have a lot of fun today. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks, Ron. I appreciate you having me on. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I know I was on yours a while back. I forgot the name of your podcast. What's the name of your podcast?
The Massive Passive Cash Flow Podcast.
Massive Passive Cash Flow. Love it. That's very close to Lifetime Cash Flow. Love it. Yep. So why don't you give us a little background? Let's start with that, Gary. Just kind of tell us why real estate, how long you've been in real estate. I think you were in mergers and acquisitions a previous lifetime. So, but give us a little background, brother.
Yeah. Well, for me, it really, when I was a kid, Rod, I used to design houses. But my idea of designing was drawing a picture of a split level or tri-level the way I saw them on the street. And in my mind, I knew where the bedrooms were and all that. Turns out my grandfather taught architecture in college way back in the early 1900s, And he saw me doing that. And then he taught me all their terminology, the scaling, everything. And my mother bought me a kit for Christmas, a T-square, the board, the whole 9 yards. And I started drawing houses, designing them, floor plans. So going forward, Virginia Tech didn't like my SAT score, so I didn't get into School of Architecture. Ended up going to Old Dominion University in Tidewater, Virginia. And there was my big lucky break. God made sure that I was going to pursue my dreams, and he had me be a roommate with a guy named Socrates. His parents were Greek.
That was his real name?
Absolutely, yeah. He lives here in Florida, near Port St. Lucie. So, in any case, so we became best friends. We're still best friends today. In fact, I'm going to go see him in a couple of weeks here. But his dad came to America not speaking a lick of English and started investing in Richmond, Virginia, which still is a great market today. And we'll touch on that if we have time in the podcast. But when we graduated, I'll never forget, Rod, this was the game changer. We were going to go rent a place because we didn't figure, how could we ever buy a place? His dad said, no, you're going to buy a place and you're going to make money on it. And when you're 35 years old, you're going to retire. And he's like pounding his chest, like telling us, you boys got to listen to me. And so we bought a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom rancher in Virginia Beach, Virginia for $63,000, if you could imagine that.
When was this?
January 1986.
86, okay.
We were very creative. We assumed the guy's first mortgage. It was a VA mortgage, and you can still do that today.
Sure.
We refinanced his second, and then we gave him a third note for the remaining equity. And that was my first exposure in real estate. I was hooked. 2 years later, I got married. Sock bought me out, and I had $3,000 into it. I got $8,000 out, and I thought, this is like too easy, So 10 years goes by. I get married, have kids, move to Pittsburgh, and I'm thinking, man, I'm like dying in this corporate job. I was not born to be sitting behind a desk, So I finally started investing for myself. And that first year, I picked up 30 units. It was 10 properties, duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes, using some of what I learned from Sock's dad and using some traditional financing too. Basically used a home equity line of credit, had a personal line of credit, had some savings, did some owner financing. I bought a property from a lawyer who financed me, did a number of things. And then ended that first year, Rod, my net income from the rentals was actually equal to my net income from my job at the bank doing mergers and acquisitions. I'm thinking, I'm going to do this, man. Now, Mr. Conservative here took another 4 years of the corporate gig before I finally retired at the ripe old age of 40. And from there, maybe I'll pause there and let you catch up, because that was really the beginning, and everything after that was just like I was shot out of a cannon. It was that fast,
Yeah. No, I feel exactly the same way about the business, and that was about the time I was doing a ton of single family as well. I was about 8 to 10 years after I started as well in '86. I started in '78, yeah, love it. And I mean, I remember buying houses for 20 grand and 13 grand. And hell, I bought 200 in Memphis, and some of those were, and of course I regret it, but I paid 3,500, 5,000, 8,000, 10,000. Those were the days. Well, so you use creative financing. What you just described with assuming a note, refinancing a second. So that's interesting, because that's actually very challenging. And then giving the seller a third. I know you love these creative financing techniques. Before we started recording, you talked about a rent participation mortgage, and why don't you elaborate on that as it relates to seller financing?
Sure. I learned that a long time ago, and some of the listeners might remember another Floridian named Carlton Sheets, way back in the day. And I originally learned the concept from him. I never applied it till years later, but what we realize is, or what I realized through my learning about real estate investing, is the markets are always going to be changing. It's very fluid. It's going up, it's going down, it's going left, it's going right. And there's no one strategy that works well in all markets. That's why you got to learn the strategies to know how to be strategic and apply the right strategies in the right market. So here's where this strategy would apply. Right now is a great time, because I think we all agree prices have gone through the roof in the last several years on everything. Anything real estate, prices have gone up. So let's take an example. Let's say you come across a 30-unit building, and this was a real life example, by the way. 30-unit building up in Michigan, and the owner was a senior woman who had passed away, and her two sons had inherited it. They didn't know what they were doing, but in their mind, this thing's worth millions of dollars, okay? And they won't budge because there's no mortgage on it. So we finally showed them, they let themselves open up their minds and hearts to listen to us, and we would say, look, we can buy properties all over the country now. The beautiful thing about today's world is anybody in investing, you don't have to invest in your own backyard anymore. I mean, I recommend you start off doing that, but once you're comfortable, look at the other markets. And we'll go over some websites to show them these markets too. But so in any case, back to this property. We show them a history of sales and rental rates in the area. And we say, look, your property is literally 1/3 occupied, 2/3 empty. And yet you want to sell it for what it's worth if it was fully occupied. Think about that. Would you do that deal? And the guy said, well, of course I would. And I said, well, nobody else is either. People with money generally are pretty smart with money. That's why they have money. So I said, let's do this. If you want to entertain us, I'll show you an opportunity here that will help you participate in the future growth of this property. And I'm willing to take that risk because I've been doing this 36 years. Said, I'll purchase it from you based on today's value, which is based on your net operating income. That's how income property is evaluated. It's the income approach to valuation. Based on that number, it's worth about $700,000. Going forward, as I raise rents, because you're behind on your rents too, your rents are very low. I said, I will share with you those increases on a 50-50 basis. That way you can get some money now, and you can get some money coming almost residually down the road, because I'm going to manage the property, not you. You just sit back and collect the checks, and you spread out your tax burden. And a few months later, after some going back and forth, his brother convinced me. He said, look, nobody's even looking at this thing except for dear old Mr. Wilson. Let's do the deal. And so that's what we did. So it ended up, at the end of the day, probably it cost me another, $150,000. But what he wanted was over $1 million, and it just wasn't worth it. So,
well, you just did it to make the deal work. And obviously, some people may have a resistance to sharing half of the upside with a seller. And I'm assuming that's in perpetuity until you sell the asset. So it's not like over a period of time. Or did you cap it?
Yeah, you cap it off. So we did it. That one we did over 5 years is what we did.
Oh, you did. Okay. Well, then that's even more appealing. Okay. Well, that is a very unique strategy, and I've heard lots of strategies, and I haven't even heard that one. And so, that's a very unique strategy. And by the way, guys, I would, if you're going to go direct to seller, I teach this at my boot camp. I would encourage you to reach out to people that have owned at least 20 plus years. Why? Because for several reasons. One, chances are the property's free and clear. Additionally, the property is fully depreciated in most cases, so they have no more tax write-offs. And so, proposing seller financing, it can be actually the best thing for them. And by the way, if they're a retiree, which they likely are if they've owned that long, they're not going to take that money from that big investment of theirs and put it into another high risk investment. So you want to have a conversation, something like this, because, when they sell, they're only going to get to keep 65, 70 cents on the dollar. So you say, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I'm going to buy your property for $1 million, and because you're fully depreciated, as you know, you're only going to get to keep 650, 700,000. And I know you're going to put the money in the bank and the bank's paying 1%. Here's what your payment would be. And you figure it out for them. But then you say, listen, work with me and I'll pay you enough of a down payment so I'm serious. I'll pay you 3, 4, 5, 6% interest, and you're only paying taxes on what you get from me every year, which is what Gary just described in this scenario, which is even in addition to what I'm telling you here. But your payment for me is going to be 3, 4, 5, 6, three or four times what you get from the bank, and it usually is. So honestly, guys, if you're not having that conversation with a retired seller with a free and clear property, you're doing them a disservice, because it's actually a better deal for them because they want the cash flow. So a great analogy, brother. So let's talk about area evaluation. Okay, when you're looking at a market or a sub-market, we mentioned we'd get into this before we started recording. So talk about some of the websites that you like, and I'll add to them if you miss any that I am aware of. That you guys, you might want to take some notes on this, as these are websites that you can go in, get demographic information, and I tell my students, immerse yourself in this, have fun with it, wallow in it. Don't be intimidated by it. Just go in there and play around, maybe put in where you live first, and then put in whatever submarket you're interested in. You can compare the two. You can see trends. You can see, demographical information, which is what you need to know if you're going to invest in a market. So take it away, buddy.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll give you a couple basic ones. As you mentioned one earlier when we were having a prior conversation is Data USA, guys. I got to tell you.
By the way, that's datausa.io. Okay.
.io. I'm sorry. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
I stumbled across that, Rod, because I used to go to the uscensus.com directly, and you have to create your reporting.
Yeah, and that's census.gov, by the way, census.gov.
Yep. So we would do that the hard old-fashioned way, and finally I discovered this, and I thought, this is beautiful, man. That's all formatted for you. So make sure datausa.io is in your toolbox, guys. Okay. You also mentioned City Data. City Data for several years was way behind on their updates, but they've caught up. It's very good. City-data,
city-data.com.
Yep. And just a little side note, I'm not really promoting it, but I tell you what, I actually get a lot of good information from Wikipedia. You can plug in any city or town, and it'll give you all the little nitty gritty.
That's a good idea.
Yep. But here's a really neat one. It's called howmoneywalks.com. And it sounds like a quirky name, but if you open it up, it's actually Irs Tax Migration. So it's public data. It uses, data from the IRS that they publish based on tax filings. So it's not necessarily tracking the migration of people, although the two are often closely related. It definitely is tracking the migration of money. So you can see money's pouring out of the 5 boroughs of New York City. Money's pouring out of, mostly, LA, San Francisco, and Chicago. People, the money's just, leaving in droves because it's going to the states where the landlord laws are more favorable. The laws
or business in general, really. Obviously these blue states are just not as business friendly. It's not a political statement, but that's just reality. And it's causing, forgetting politics, although politics, of course, playing a big role. There's a lot of people moving out of these states that are tired of the business environment, tired of the controls, and of course, the political piece as well. Yeah. Another one by How Money Walks. I love that. I didn't even know about that. So I will look into that after we're done here. But another one is bestplaces.net. That's another great website. And, one of the things, when we're doing a presentation on a deal we're raising money for example, we've got one right now in Nashville, screaming deal.
Mhm.
Not mid 90s build, 145 doors, just fantastic returns, even with low 60% Freddie Mac financing, fixed rate
Wow.
financing. It's a hell of a deal. So, but in our presentation, like we're doing a webinar on it. This will probably air after that, but we're doing a webinar on it. And when we do that, you'll notice we use a lot of information from these websites that you just mentioned. And, you can print graphs, you can do all sorts of things that really show what's happening. Because remember, guys, you want to see some things going up. You want to see population going up, income going up, and jobs going up. And of course, jobs is the biggest thing. You want to see employment diversity. You want to see not just one industry or one horse in town. You don't want like just a one military base or one big employer, because if that horse gets sick or dies or leaves town, you're screwed. So, really important that you have that diversity as well. You agree?
Absolutely. So we actually came up with a short list, Rod, years ago of the industries we'd like to see. And if we have 2 or 3 of them, we're in. So higher education, very stable. It doesn't matter what the economy does. People are always going to college, university. Strong medical presence.
Healthcare. Yep. I was going to say the same thing. Yep.
So,
and what's the third?
Also, if you have a high tech presence, sometimes it's through the university systems, but really anything, high tech presence. And another one would be if it's a financial center or a sub financial center. So like Pittsburgh is considered a sub financial center to New York, even though it's in the Cleveland Fed district, it's a sub-financial district or area for New York City. So financial, high tech, higher education, strong medicine. And if you have some other industry like a military base, that's another one, by the way.
Yeah, sure. That can be one of them for sure. It just can't be the only one. Right.
Correct.
Yeah. Love it.
So we look for good. 2 to 3 of them. We got 3. That's like we're in. If you got 2 of them, we'll check out some other data.
Yeah, but remember this, guys. Jobs is absolutely the most important piece of this. Okay, and especially heading into. So let me ask you this, Gary. What are your thoughts on the political? The economic environment right now? Trump was just quoted as saying it's going to be a depression, not a recession. And love him or hate him, he's pretty smart guy and economically for sure. So what are your thoughts?
Okay. So everybody just remember, I'm not an attorney and I'm not an accountant, but I did spend a lot of years in banking, and more importantly, I spent years privately investing. So this is just my opinion. Okay. Now this is my 5th market cycle. The day this is being recorded, Thursday, August 11th, we are in a recession. It might not feel too dramatic right now, but guys, we're absolutely in a recession. So one recommendation is turn off all the mainstream media television networks and focus on the data. Just get the actual data, So in any case, here's my thoughts on this. I started back in 1986, and everybody remembers October 1987. That was, they called it Black Monday. The stock market lost 25% in one day. Later on, you had the slight recession in 92, the tech burst in early 2000. And of course, the big recession in late 2007 through probably 2011, if you want to call it that. So what I know is this. In the last recession, the Great Recession, we did not have a problem with inflation. We had a very hot real estate market that was driven by, unfortunately, unscrupulous mortgage broker business. They were just pushing back.
Oh, well, really, Wall Street more than that even. They were slicing and dicing those mortgages. And if you could fog a mirror, you could buy a house back then. Right.
Oh, my gosh. It was crazy.
Right.
So I don't want to go on the history of, how it all started in the 1970s, but just you can read all about it. Watch the movie, the Big Short.
Right. Big Short. Yeah.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
A Great Short or Big Short, but it's exactly what happened, guys. In fact, in the midst of the crash, I built a litigation support company to help people try to save their homes. And I built law firms in 5 states and supported those law firms and stopped foreclosures and tried to, modify loans. We saved thousands of families' homes, but thankless business. And thank God I sold it a few years ago. But it all the things that they said in that movie are real. There was so much fraud by big banks. You would not believe the level of fraud that it was just obvious. I'm not going to say the names, but big banks, you'd recognize every single name. Just crazy stuff. But anyway, I digress. So keep going.
Well, that's okay. That's why, I'm not an anarchist, but I'm telling you, I take everything with a grain of salt that comes across the television. I don't care if it's politicians or media.
It's mostly BS. It just is. It's complete crap. So guys, listen, if you're listening to me, you've heard me say this before, you're a leader. And as a leader, your focus is freaking critical. So make sure you're bringing in the good stuff and you're standing guard, like Gary says, at the door to your mind, and keep that crap out. You've got to keep a finger on the pulse, but don't get sucked into it, because what you focus on gets bigger, positive or negative. Okay. Yes. Super important that you pay attention to that. All right.
Focus on the positive. So here's what's happening. In the last recession, we didn't have a big inflation problem like we had back in the late 70s and early 80s. And if you guys weren't around back then, don't worry about it. You don't need to know all that history. Just know that it occurred. So when you have big inflation, it's very difficult to control the economy and bring it down without killing the economy. So back then they had something called stagflation. It was just sickening. I mean, 18% interest rates is ridiculous. So,
that's when I started in the business. 18%. I mean, I remember doing backflips and like screaming with joy when it hit 7%. Seriously. Yeah.
Well, I remember when it got below 10, I'm thinking, man, things are getting great. This is only 9%.
Right.
So in any case, here we are. The government's telling you it's now in 9.1%. It's not. They're using what's called a basket of goods that includes things like shaving cream. Now, how often do I buy shaving cream? Once every 3 months. How much does it cost? $3. What's the inflation on shaving cream? 3%. But where do we spend all of our money? Most of it. Here it is. Housing cost, transportation cost, food, medicine, and education.
Gas.
All 5 of those have gone up, and 3 of them have gone up dramatically in the last couple of years. Not by 9.1%. Some of them have double, guys.
Yeah.
We're talking 50, 60, 70% on the big ticket items. That is massive inflation. This is Venezuela type stuff, okay? So there's not anything politicians can do to stop this freight train, all right? What you and I can do, though, is have a level head and not panic, but prepare. So I've been on a cash basis for 7 years now, anticipating what might happen. I'm not saying I'm not investing. I'm definitely investing, but I have a strong cash hand right now because it's going to be Christmas time. Right now. If you look at do you know that 5 or 6 major lending institutions have just announced layoffs just in the last 2 weeks? Okay.
Yeah.
It's quiet. It's not on the news. You got to dig and find this stuff. Look at here's something for you. In June, of all the active transactions in the world of real estate, 15% buyers backed out of 15% of them. Transaction volume in July was down 20% year over year. In other words, 20% less than July 2021. Now what we're starting to see are price drops. So in the state of Virginia, where I spend a lot of time, and I'm looking to purchase, by the way, I'm looking for, you want to know what Gary Wilson's doing, I'm looking in Virginia for different reasons. But in any case, across the board, 10% price drops on active listings. That and fast too. This was not like over time. This was
and listen, I had sorry to interrupt for a second here, but I had my multifamily boardroom mastermind. This probably been about 6 weeks ago. And, these are the biggest operators in the country. There's about 16 billion in assets in there. And we met in Houston. And at that point, almost all deals were being retraded at about 10 to 12% reduction. So there you go. And this is in big multifamily. So same. Yeah.
Yep. And then the other thing too is in the last recession, if everybody remembers, Congress rewrote the rules about lending and appraisals and all that. And if you notice, the appraisers started really pulling back on the appraisal values, pushing down, keeping them, not being so crazy wild west like it has been. It's already started here. We're seeing it's 10%. Appraisals coming in at 10% lower than agreed upon price, and people are pissed off. People are mad about it. Excuse me.
Yeah. Oh, listen, we drop F-bombs and everything else here. We're good. Go ahead. Okay.
But these are all basically, these aren't the problems. These are the indicators
solutions.
That there is a big problem.
Yeah. So, but you're right. They're the indicators, but they're also the solutions. Okay. Cause it's been crazy. It has to settle down. Hell, the last year and a half, 2 years, you had no due diligence. If you didn't go hard on a property, non-refundable, you didn't have a chance. And still a little bit of that now, but we're getting back to normal, to a 30-day due diligence period, to, the normalcy with brokers actually calling you back. In fact, I've said this before. I don't know if it was on this podcast or somebody else's, but in the last 2 months, I've gotten more emails from brokers than I got in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
That's how much it opened up. I mean, just,
Oh, yeah.
Deals are coming back. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
But
in any case, so the thing to do is, be level-headed. Don't be too greedy. Let me rephrase that. Be aggressive, be demanding. It's better to be demanding right now. And that's what I'm doing. I'm going in low and people are getting mad at me. And I'm thinking, well, look, I know the data. And I just tell them flat out who I am and what I'm all about. And I say, look, I can wait it out. I don't have to buy this property. I'm not trying to make you mad. I'm just trying to be realistic. If you were smart, you would sell now because it's going to go down. So here's my final summation here. I really hope it doesn't get that bad, guys. But in my opinion, the way the numbers are shaping up, it could get pretty bad. It really could. The probability is much higher today than it was even in 2007, 8, 9.
I agree completely. And I was the most bearish one at my my mastermind with these other operators. They're all like, no, it's okay. There's still huge job demand, so on and so forth. But here's something sobering that I heard. And guys, again, we're not trying to scare you. Get freaking excited. Okay. If you haven't learned this business, get your butt to my boot camp. I've got a virtual one coming up the middle of October. It's $100 to come. I mean, and I don't sell anything there. It's kind of a no-brainer. But the point is, and am I buying? Yeah, I've got that great deal in Nashville, but we're very, very conservative. Okay. And so, but get up to speed as fast as possible. And where was I going with that? I was going to say something else. And don't be aggressive, be super conservative. And like you say, wait it out if you have to, but don't overpay right now. That's just insane. Now, of course, the debt markets are crazy right now. It's very, very difficult to get, debt, especially in tertiary markets, outlying areas, because Fannie and Freddie know what's coming. I mean, they know what's coming. Oh, here's what I was going to say. That's right. Yeah. I heard that we're going to have to print money again in September just to pay the interest on the freaking debt we already have. Okay, guys, that is really bad. Okay. They're trying to drop inflation by raising the interest rates, but typically that doesn't work. There's just too much money in circulation because they printed trillions. And these, don't get me started on the idiots. They just did another trillion with this latest bill. Just the dumbest crap ever. So, they're making it worse, much worse. And so, we'll see how it all shakes out, but I think it's going to get ugly in my opinion. And I think there's going to be incredible opportunity, I was hiding under a rock in 2008 and 9 because I thought I was set for life and I lost everything. Not this time, man. I'm in a lot of cash. And by the way, guys, you don't necessarily have to have a ton of cash yourself, but you need to have built relationships so you have access to money. Okay. And like I taught this at my Denver boot camp just this last couple of weeks ago, is build relationships with people that have money, let them know you're waiting. And as what hits the fan and the blood's running in the streets, there's going to be incredible opportunity. You're being a contrarian, and that's where the biggest money is made. So, yeah. Well,
I'll give you another thing I learned. And I learned this partly from being in banking is, the reasons why the banks are at the top of the food chain is because they're also smart with money. Most of them, some are not smart, but here's what I learned to do. I had a lot of properties and built up quite a portfolio, and I wanted to get a commercial line of credit, a business line of credit across all the equity. And every lender I went to would say, no, we're going to want you to refinance because we want to be in first position. I'm like, look, guys, I'm not going to start amortization all over again. I've already got these things paid down. I got a ton of equity. I said, here's what I'll offer you. I said, I'll let you record a lien on every single property if you want to do that. I just want the availability of the funds to be able to write a check at a moment's notice when I find a deal. I'm not saying I'm going to go out there and spend this tomorrow. I'm not going to buy boats and cars and mansions. I'm going to buy income producing assets. When I phrased it that way, and I finally found somebody who said, what, we'll do the deal. And what's interesting, Rod, is I bought more properties. Guess what they did with that big line of credit? They increased it because I added more income producing assets. And now,
when was this? Just from a historical standpoint, what do you recall? What year that was?
That was 2000. My gosh, hang on a second. That was 1999. 1999, I did that.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
because I know, and just as a line of credit comment here, I know that in 08 and 9, lines of credits got frozen, they got reduced. And what's really onerous is if you had money in their bank, they could claw that money back to pay off lines of credit. So if you have a line of credit, don't have money in a bank account at that bank, or read the fine print, because chances are they can go into your bank account and claw money back to pay down that line of credit. And that could really be ugly for you. So again, if you've got a line of credit, have your money parked somewhere else.
Yeah.
So,
well, one thing I do want to share with you guys, listeners, so just remember this. The beautiful thing about real estate, it is a tangible asset that also throws off income. Like if you think about blue chip mutual funds, it's the capital plus the income. So real estate, the beautiful thing about real estate is it will never go to zero. It's you got land and a building on top of the land. All that happens, guys, in a recession is the properties change hands. It's just going from one person to the next. Your goal should be here to listen to Rod, go to the training, and figure out how do you be that person that's on the receiving end. Okay, be the person as part of the transaction. Participate in it. Some way, shape, or form. There's a role for you to play in this. And more people have made more wealth in down markets than do in up markets. Exponentially more. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, some people are saying it's the greatest transfer of wealth in our lifetime is coming. So guys, just get up to speed. If you're trying to learn this in the midst of it, it's going to be too late. You need to get up to speed right now. I don't care if you learn from me, but $100 to come see me for 2 days without a sales pitch, kind of a no-brainer if you're interested. By the way, if you are interested, text my name Rod to 72345 or go to multifamilyvirtualbootcamp.com. And like I said, it's 16 to 18 hours of training without a sales pitch for $97, kind of a no-brainer. Well, listen, I appreciate, I just, it always, what you give, you get back 100-fold, that. So I don't make any money on that, but I get coaching clients and deals and all sorts of things from doing that. So it always works out. Well, listen, brother, I appreciate you being on the show. It's great to see you again. We'll have to continue the conversation. We'll have to grab lunch one of these days since you're so close, man. That's kind of a no-brainer. Let's make that happen. All right, buddy. Well, listen, good to see you. We'll talk soon, man. Sounds good, Rod. Have a wonderful day. And everybody listening, keep the uplook because it is going to be positive,
Yep. Thanks, man. See you.
Okay.
Rod, I know a lot of our listeners are wanting to take their multifamily investing business to the next level. Now, I know you've been hard at work helping our Warrior students do just that using our ACT methodology, which is awareness, close, and transform. Can you explain to the listeners how they can get our help?
You bet. Guys, we've been going nonstop for 3 years, building an amazing community of like-minded people. And our coaching students, which we call our Warriors, have had extraordinary results. They've purchased thousands and thousands of units. And last year, we did over 1,000 units with our students. And we're looking to grow this group and take it to the next level. We're looking for people who want to follow a proven framework that's really step by step and then leverage our systems and network to raise equity, to find and close deals, and to build partnerships nationwide. Now, our Warrior community is finding success in any market cycle. So if you're interested in finding out more about how you can become more of our incredible network and take advantage of the incredible opportunities that are coming very soon, apply to work with us at mentorwithrod.com or text CRUSH to 72345 and we'll set up a call so you can check us out and we can check you out. That's mentorwithrod.com or text CRUSH to 72345.